CJI 2 is now only 2 weeks away, and yet we are still getting updates on the rules and formatting and exactly what this event is going to be, but one topic seems to be on everybody's mind more than anything else, and that is the teams. Guys, this is Sean with PDMA, and today we are going to talk about the teams at CJI 2. Now, we're not going to go through and break down like each individual member of each individual team. More so, we're going to talk about some of the controversy and just some of the discussions people are having about these teams. And very notably, something that happened recently at the time of recording this video, Big Dan Manasoyo is out of Team New Wave, and Craig seems to want us to believe that he'll be the one replacing him. And so we are going to talk about all of that and more, but first, if you guys want to stay up to date with all of the latest BJJ news and topics that are happening within the sport, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. That helps me out a ton. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So let's just get into what I'm sure everybody's thinking about already, the wildcards. Wildcard! And so if you aren't already familiar, CJI 2 is going to be a quintet-style event featuring 8 teams that either represent a particular gym or a particular team, or in some cases, a particular part of the world. And theoretically how it works is that each member of that team, each member of that quintet, is supposed to be from that gym or team or part of the world. And that's kind of what it was looking like when these teams started to get formed. Pretty early on, we learned who was going to be on teams like Team 10th Planet and Team Pedigo Submission Fighting. And those teams were actually established pretty early. All of those members are from those respective teams. And then we had this concept of the wild card come in. So what the wild card is if your team can't fill one of the slots with a high-level competitor, you could actually go elsewhere and have somebody from a different team come compete on your team. So let's say your team didn't have a heavyweight who had competed at a super high level and you didn't think that you had anybody who was ready to compete at CJI, you could go to another team and get that heavyweight. And that's exactly what B Team did when they recruited Victor Hugo. And this is sort of where the controversy with all this wildcard stuff started to begin, because you have a team like B Team who's already a super accomplished team. I mean, you have Nicky Rod on the team who won the CJI event last year, as well as a bunch of competitors who have just super high level accomplishments. And now you're able to go and bring in somebody like Victor Hugo, who's a super accomplished athlete, and it really rounds out B Team in a way that I think some people look and say, you know, the other teams aren't able to round themselves out quite like this. And of course, B Team wasn't the only team to bring in a wild card. In fact, New Wave went ahead and recruited Mica Galvão, and I remember when that happened, people were like, how is this at all fair? And look, I'm not here to say if this is fair or not, and technically, New Wave is doing nothing wrong by bringing in Mica because it is within the rules. CJI 2 allows you to bring in a wild card, and that's a very, very smart pick for a wild card. All I'm saying is that when that happened, people were definitely talking about it. And as time went on, Craig actually came out and made an announcement that teams were now going to be allowed to have 2 wild cards on their team. And the reason Craig gave for this actually did make some sense. He kind of brought up the fact that, look, you might have somebody on your team who gets injured, since this is a combat sport and people do get injured in jiu-jitsu, and you need to have replacements ready. And if you are coming from a region or a team that just isn't that deep, you might need to start recruiting high-level people from another school or from another region just to kind of make sure that you have a team that's going to be competitive in this event. And nobody took advantage of that opportunity more than Team Atos. Now, I'm definitely not saying what Team Atos did was a bad thing here. Actually, I think they made a very smart move by recruiting Felipe Pena and Diego Pato to their team.
All right, hey guys, Sean here. I'm currently editing this video, and I absolutely hate when YouTubers do this, and yet here we are. So I realized at this portion of the video, I kind of made a little mistake here, but I'll let you decide. So apparently what's happening is that Atos is actually considering Felipe Pena to be a regular member of Atos because he's actually done a couple camps there and a couple camps there recently. Diego Pato is still considered the wild card for the team. This was announced on July 24th, according to this Yahoo News article that I just read, and I will link that below in the description so you can read it for yourself. The other article that I referenced where Craig said that there's going to be 2 wildcard slots for each team in CJI 2 came out on August 2nd, and that was on bjjdoc.com. I will link that as well. So technically, Team Atos does not have 2 wildcards. Technically. Anyway, back to the video. Sorry about this.
But now I want to go back and talk about the fact that this did become pretty controversial. People were pretty quick to take to the internet and start saying like, hey, this isn't really fair to some of these teams like Team 10th Planet or Team Pedigo that I mentioned earlier, who already have rosters completely made of people from their gym. And people were saying, well, it's not really fair that a team like Atos can go and grab 2 of the highest level competitors in the world that aren't on their team and now just kind of add them to their roster. I will say most of the pushback I've seen has been from the fans, and I had my own opinions on this topic too, but then I read something that Heath Pedigo said, and it made a lot of sense, and I actually think he handled this extremely appropriately. In response to all this wildcard controversy, Heath Pedigo, head of Pedigo Submission Fighting, had this to say. You can put all 7 teams together and make one super team. We don't give a f***. Our team is PSF. There's less than 90,000 people from all 6 of our hometowns combined. Think about that. You think we got where we are being scared of big names and teams? Bring them on, all of them. And if you know anything about PSF or you know anything about Heath Pedigo, that's the exact response I would create. PSF has kind of made a long career of always being the underdog and no matter what they are in, and they've done that very, very successfully. So while teams like PSF and it seems like 10th Planet are pretty unbothered by this whole wildcard situation, now we're going to talk about how far exactly this is going to go. Because as I mentioned in the intro, unfortunately, Big Dan Montesoyo is now out of CJI 2, so Team New Wave needs a new heavyweight, and they need one pretty quickly. And judging by this post that Craig Jones made the other day, it seems like Craig either wants us to believe it's going to be him, or it actually is going to be him. And I'm almost positive by the time that I put this video out, the question of who will be the heavyweight competing for Team New Wave will be answered. But at the time of recording this video, it's not. And again, people have had a lot to say about, can Craig actually become the new heavyweight on Team New Wave? And the answer to that is, yeah, just tournament. He can do whatever he wants. But I am really curious about what you guys think about that. Can Craig Jones step in and compete with Team New Wave? I mean, if we know anything about Craig Jones, it's that he loves a good storyline, and what would be a better storyline than Craig Jones ultimately coming and competing for Team New Wave, reunited with John Danaher on Gordon Ryan's team, even though Gordon's not competing, it's, he is a big part of Team New Wave. The story that you could sell with that kind of almost makes me think that Craig is serious about this, but I guess we will find out soon enough. So what do you guys think about this whole wildcard controversy in general? Do you think it's a good idea that these teams are able to recruit from other places? Do you think some teams are kind of taking advantage of this rule? Let me know what you think in the comments. Regardless of what happens, I am super excited to watch CJI 2. I think the way these teams actually ended up shaking out makes for some very, very interesting matchups. So please let me know in the comments, what matchups are you most interested in seeing? And if you guys like this video at all, and again, want to stay up to date with the latest BJJ news and info, please click that subscribe button. That helps me out a ton. With all of that out of the way, I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.